to PolyOriginals with Fiona Abel-Smith. Today I thought we'd do a nice little leaf cane. I was making a fairy house at the weekend and I needed some leaf cane to go on it, and I had to try with loads of different types. Finally came up with one that I quite liked. So I'll just swap you over to show you the leaf on the fairy house now. So as you can see, I used the leaf in the detail here, and when you pull back you can see how it just goes around the outside of the fairy house. And I was just looking for something which wasn't too bright because this is quite an autumnal fairy house, so I used muted colours of greens. But I thought this would be a nice little one to do for a tutorial for you, so that's what we'll do now. So for this tutorial, let's say a simple leaf cane, don't need much in the way of tools. We need a tissue blade, craft knife, some form of clay roller, your pasta machine which we'll be using to do a skinner blend, and then the clay. For today I'm using Polymer Clay, Sculpey Primo, but all brands of clay work equally well, and I'm using Pearl Wasabi, the green with a bit of ultramarine with it because I want actually quite a nice dark green for this one. And then for the outer leaf and outside of the leaf and the veins, we're going to use some of the pomegranate with again some of the ultramarine. This is about 1/4 of the 2-ounce packet, so approximately 14 grams of each of these, and this one's more like about 20 grams of this one. So first thing you need to do, as per normal, condition your clay. For anyone who's new to conditioning, I have got a video on how to condition clay, so you can pop over to that to give you some tips and techniques from that if that's of any help. The other thing we'll be using today is I'm working on a laminated sheet just to make it easy to work on. This is freely downloadable from www.printablepaper.net. So I have conditioned all my clay and got it roughly into the shape I want it. So you can see there was a nice deep green that made up, just adding the bit of ultramarine in there. And I've also conditioned the bit for the veins, but we'll come back to that a bit later, so we don't need that for now, so that can go on one side. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a skinner blend, but for this skinner blend I actually want it quite a narrow one when I put it in the pasta machine. So because of that I'm going to chop up these pieces into halves and just put them one on top of the other. And you don't need to be too neat with this. As most of you know who've done skinner blends before, once you start putting it through the pasta machine, there's all sorts of ways you can manipulate it to make it nice and neat. So I'm going to go for very rough triangles in these two bits, offsetting just slightly, most offsetting just here and here, here and here, so at one end I get most of one colour and at the other end most of the other. Swap those two over there. So I've now got 4 layers of clay here, 4 layers of clay here, so this bit in the middle also needs to be 4 layers. So I'm just chopping down through, turn that one over, and if I then put that there, that one there, and that one there, we will end up with a nice skinner blend which starts all pearl at one side, gradually gets through the wasabi and then goes through to the neater, darker green on that side. Because I've got 4 layers of clay here, I'm not going to fold as I normally do when I'm doing my skinner blend. I am, however, going to turn the whole thing upside down and just push those layers together to make sure that when I put all this thick layer of clay through the pasta machine, those layers don't all squidge out. I'm just going to take off a little bit of excess green I've got here and here, because otherwise that'll give me too much to work with when I'm putting it through the pasta machine. So there's our very simple blend. What I'm going to do now is take you over to the pasta machine and we'll put it through and create a nice skinner blend. Okay, here we are at the pasta machine and here's our blend. I'm going to put it through lengthways, and these all went through setting number 3 on my pasta machine when I conditioned my clay. So I've got 4 layers, so I'm going to put this through now on setting number 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to butt it up to one end, because what I want to do is keep this nice thin strip as it goes through the pasta machine. So it goes through, and as it goes through I'm going to collect it underneath with my hand. If you need any more information on basic skinner blends, I do have a video showing you how to do those as well. So I'm just going to take you through turning it, folding top to bottom each time as I go, but also rotating, because although you think the rollers on the clay machine should be completely symmetrical, they tend to do that or that, and you'll end up with a shape It ends up like that if you don't turn it around either time, and that was a tip that came from Sarah Shriver. So I'll just fast forward you through now, me doing that particular blend. If you find your clay becomes too long, simply move up one setting on the pasta machine. So I've now gone up to setting number 1 on my machine. Okay, so there's our blend. I'm still on setting number 1, but I've got quite a nice length to mine. If yours is slightly less than that, you might want to put it back down on setting number 2 at this stage. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the end piece off and cut that into 4 equal pieces, and I'll bring you back when I've done that. Okay, there are my 4 pieces that I've just chopped up on the measuring sheet, and I'm going to put them together so that that piece goes there with that one, and then the other way around so that that piece goes there with that one, and we're going to put those back through the pasta machine that way up to create a nice skinner blend with that one and a nice skinner blend with that one. And because I've put it through on setting number 1 to start with, and mine are still on setting number 1, I can now move down to setting number 2 to give me a bit more length so that I can fold it each time as I go. And the other thing we're going to do is the same as we did with the painting with Polymer Clay video. We're going to shrink this because we want both of these to actually end up only that width. So I'll take you through that. We'll start with this one. So putting my pasta machine down to setting number 2, I'm simply going to put that through as it is, just to make sure that join's nicely done. Then I'm going to fold it up, marrying the 2 white bits together there. And now I'm going to start concertinaing this, pushing this up really quite tight against that end of the pasta machine, and then even out the fold, so I do the same at the top. And you collect it in your hand. So you collect it in your hand as you go through, and just repeat doing that, concertinaing up each time until you end up with a piece about that wide, and each time I'm going to flip it that way or that way and concertina it slightly to make sure I end up with the right width. Okay, that one's about done. I want to end up with a piece that's probably about 2.5 inches, 7 centimetres, something like that, 6.5, 7 centimetres in width. And now I'll repeat exactly the same with this one. So when you've got it roughly the same width as the first one, put your pasta machine down to setting number 3, and what I'm looking for here is about 5 inches worth, 12.5 centimetres worth of length. So I'm just using the measure machine. Yes, that's about right. Okay, so there we go, my 2 stripes ready to go in the leaf cane, and now I'll take you back to the overhead view. Okay, so there are 2 strips of clay. Don't worry about things like this where it goes slightly wavy. This is a leaf cane we're doing. This is a natural form. If every leaf you cut off your cane is different, it's absolutely fine. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tissue blade, and using this measuring sheet, which is 1-inch squares, I'm going to take off the end, put that to one side, then I'm going to cut myself 5 slices. In actual fact, we're only going to use 4. The 5th one is to give us an option as to what to do with the leaf vein in the middle. So don't worry if you've only got 4 inches, that's not the end of the world, we can sort something out. Turn around, do the same again with this one. That goes off to one side, and then cut myself 5 slices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the other thing I need to do is to neaten these up width-wise or height-wise to make sure that this one and this one are roughly the same. So I'm going to work on this one first because this one is slightly narrower, and this is why it was important, if we could, when we were making our skinner blend, to make them roughly the same size to make it easier for us when we're at this stage. So I'm just going to measure, that's 1, 2, it's actually 2.5 inches. So I need to do this one the same. So just take a little bit off here. So that's 3, 4. Okay, so if I go up there, they should be each 2.5 inches in width this way. And again, it doesn't have to be whatever yours are, as long as you make them both the same height this way or the same width. That's all you need to do. So those are the main parts of our leaf. What we need to do now is to make some vein to go in the middle, and we're going to do this by using the dark colour we made. And we want a nice long strip of this, and we need it to be 7 inches, so we want 7 of these strips in width, and it needs to be slightly shorter than these ones we've got, so I'd say about 2 inches. So I'll just put this through the pasta machine. I'm going to probably put this through on setting number 7, will be about good to give us a nice thin vein to go in between these leaf slices. So I'll just go and get that done. So there we go, I went through on setting number 7 on my pasta machine, and now all I'm going to do is to take 7 thin slices of that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and as we said, we actually wanted it about 2 inches, so I'm going to use that one as a guide. I know it's a tad under on this side, but I will just skew it slightly and bring my blade down ever so slightly on that end. So there we are, all set up and ready, all the bits we need to do our leaf cane. And all we're going to do is bring those bits back. So all of our bits are ready now, and all we're going to do is to start putting it all together. So start with whichever bit you like. I'm going to start with the top one there. So lift up that piece, take one of your darker pieces and put it in the middle. And again, if you can get it exactly in the middle, fantastic. If it's not exactly in the middle, please don't worry about it. This is a natural thing. And we're just going to layer up, alternating between this one, and this in the middle. And if you forget where you are, just remember, if it's dark on this side, then you need light to be the next one. And just keep going back. And then the dark. And the light. And we're only actually going to want 8 pieces of these. Remember I said we were going to have one of these left over. So that's down there. So there's our last piece of light. And there's our last piece of dark. And you don't have a vein on the top, just leave it like that. So we've got one of those and one of those left over for work on in a second. And if I lift that up, you can see there where we are at the moment with that. So put those 2 pieces to one side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down on one of my measuring sheets and put it so it's right in the middle. So you see that square's in the middle there, and I've got roughly equidistant either side. And then taking the blade, I'm simply going to chop down a diagonal line going from one corner of a square over to the other. And what should then happen is that I will hopefully have roughly the same size, and those 2 pieces are going to end up going together like that and then being pulled out the top. But what we need to do first, of course, is to put a vein up the middle, and this is where these 2 pieces come in. So I'm going to decide which one I'm going to use, and then I'm going to fold it in half. I think I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to have the dark bit down at the bottom, so I'm going to fold it that way. And of course this does give you the option of having both. So if you do one of these and don't like it, you can always use the other one, which is spare. So what we're going to need to do, we want it to go in there and come at the top. So yes, I like the fact it's got the light at the top, so I'm going to use that one. And we're going to take some of our dark clay, still on that same setting that you were using for the vein, so number 7 on mine. And I'm going to remember which way I was having the green at the bottom and the white at the top. So I'm just going to take my tissue blade, chop off the red clay there, use it to chop either side there, and then I can pull this back over the top the white, pick the whole thing up, turn it over and chop off the bottom, and that is the start of our middle leaf vein. However, it's got a very much a blunt end at the moment, so what we're going to do, we're just going to pinch the top. So I'm going to pinch and I'm also going to pull, and I want it to go from the bottom here to about halfway up. Actually, I'm going to use this slightly longer side, use that side, so it's not quite long enough. So this is where your roller comes in. Just take your roller and very gently roll it longer and thinner. Don't worry about it splaying, that's fine, we can chop that bit off. In fact, I'll do that now. Let's just chop that off neat. And what you should hopefully have now is a piece that fits at the bottom. I'll put it that way up so you can see what we're doing. Fits at the bottom and goes halfway up your piece there. Then sit the other bit on that side there. So we'll pull him to the top, because what you're going to do, you're actually going to pull these bits all the way around to the top to create that nice curve in your leaf, and then keep pulling, just pinching with your fingers the whole of these top bits over till you're ending up with more of a sort of diamond shape. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to wrap the whole of this in this dark red colour, either setting number 7 or number 6, depending on how much clay you've got and whether you want a thinner or a thicker surround on it. I think I'm going to do mine in number 6, so I'll just get my clay ready for that. Another tip for you, when you're trying to put a surround on something, if you fold your clay roughly the right height for what you're trying to wrap round, and then put it through the pasta machine that way down so the folds are at the sides, you will come out with a piece that is roughly the right size, and make the most of the piece you've got. Okay, so there we go. There's a nice long piece of clay. And I'm just going to use the tissue blade to measure out and cut off the excess. Doesn't matter if it's slightly wider is better than too thin, because if it overlaps a bit around the top, that's absolutely fine, because as you reduce, you'll find it just means that you have more of the cane that is usable. And then just very gently wrap that around your leaf cane. Where it overlaps, chop off. And all we need now to do is to reduce that. And I will tend to reduce my leaf canes in a square shape because I find it one of the easiest shapes to reduce with. Now, if you're lucky enough to have any of the flat blocks that sit top and bottom of canes and help you reduce things, there are a couple of places that sell them online. They are fantastic for doing this. So if you've got one of those, fantastic, use those. If you haven't, what I tend to do is I'll reduce it on something like this, which is the laminated sheet, because the clay will stick to the laminated sheet. And all I'll do is I'll press down on those 4 corners, creating more of a square shape, turning it round as I go, and I'm just pressing in at the same time as pressing down, and the bottom of my shape is completely stuck to the laminated sheet. And what it means when I pull it off is that I've got a nice flat shape at the bottom. I will then repeat turning it round and do the same again, and all I'm doing is just concentrating on pushing in those corners, and as you push in, so it automatically becomes longer. Same again, just pushing in as I go, making sure the bottom's nicely attached. And when I've got a reasonable length, I'll just pick it up, push it back into that square shape, and then we'll chop through and see what we've got. And there you go, one pretty leaf cane. Now this will look nice for all sorts of things, not just leaves. I quite fancy using that in a kaleidoscope, to be honest. I think that'll make a really nice element to do as part of a kaleidoscope cane. And if you're going to change the shape for a leaf, all I'd then do was press down the sides to create more of a leaf shape. And you can reduce that as small as you want it to go, completely up to you. And use this in so many different ways. As I mentioned before, you saw the toadstool that I'd done originally. The other thing you can do is do a completely different colour. So there it is in blue, and that was done with Fimo, with a mixture of white, turquoise and Pacific blue, with their plum being the vein colour, and that's come out very nicely. And with that you can then reduce that down, it goes down to something like that, reduce it still more, and I've just added a few bits here on a plain pink background, 6 petals, a little bit of bling, and then a little hook in, so obviously you can do bits of jewellery as well. But this is a really nice, fun cane to do. Just have a go with, play around with it and see what you get. So there we go, that was it. That was the leaf cane tutorial. I hope you liked that one. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to me and then you'll get notification of every time I do a new video. Thanks very much for watching and I'll catch you next time. Bye.